Um, I don't think I have all of them. Some of them came in last night, some came in this morning. Um, I have two that I think it's important that we acknowledge, read these public comments and acknowledge them. Um, Let me read this first one. It says, hello, I am submitting the following questions and would like an answer as the continual problems with SBD abuse concern residents of Seattle, as well as those citizens living outside of Seattle who work in and visit the city often. Please answer the following questions. Why does the CPC not take public comment in person? Why does the CPC violate its mandate by failing to hold public community meetings to seek input and advice for over 5 years now? Why did the CPC take 7 years to deny the SBD certain means for abusing protesters and yet still allow continuing abuse with other methods, hands, bikes, clubs, etc.? And why does the CPC continue to confuse crowd control with the protection of First Amendment rights? I look forward to your answers to these important questions. Respectfully, Paul M. Layer. Another email I received, CPC members, despite in-person gathering limitations imposed by the pandemic, the CPC needs to soon and often seek public input by holding virtual community meetings.
Okay.
The community needs to come together, discuss, share comments, see and listen to each other. Comments like this one at the beginning of your meeting just give the appearance of meaningful input, not the real deal. Thank you. Laurette Colbert. Those are the only two I have. Are there any others that have come in?
I think so. Let me see if I can pull it up. Did you read the one from Brent?
No.
Okay. Okay. To the Seattle Citizen Police Commission. Why is it? Wait a minute. Why is the CPC not taking public comment on the person live? We must have a greater transparency than this. It's long past due that the CPC meet with the mandate to hold public community meetings and to seek input and guidance from the city. Maybe you just read this one. Why is it still not happening 5 years since the commitment was made? It is more urgent now than ever. I think this is the one you made. I'll just finish it up. For law enforcement, as well as the review board and commissions, to be more transparent and open to the public debate and discussion. And this is from Brent McFarland, and he lives in Bitter Lake.
Okay, yeah.
I think that's the one you read. So I think it's another one though.
No, I didn't read that one. That's a new name.
Okay. And
Mr. Gill just left a comment and said he sent in a comment. Does anyone have that? Prati, do you have that or?
I can read the rest of the comments. If that's helpful.
Okay.
Received. The next comment is, dear CPC, RE Police Accountability. I've heard Mayor Durkin and Chief Best say repeatedly in interviews over the past 4 months that Seattle has an effective civilian-led police accountability system. They both cite the CPC as part of that accountability system, along with the OIG and the OPA. We all know the majority of inspectors in the OPA are police officers. It's hard to see how that makes it a civilian body. And it's hard to figure out what is meant by the CPC being part of the accountability system when the CPC doesn't often comment on killings by police officer or file OPA complaints on behalf of victims. Could you clarify how the CPC functions to hold police accountable for misconduct, brutality, unnecessary shootings, etc.? What does that accountability look like? Thank you. The next one that I have is, good morning, CPC members. As an interested and concerned resident, I am submitting 2 questions in particular that are important to me. Why did the CPC not file a complaint in the death of Terry Kaber? What specific measures or formal suggestions has the CPC given SBD to reform its manual or policing policy regarding the use of deadly force. Example, shooting people, particularly African American men, killed with only knives who were running away, Harry Caver, or not attacking Ryan Smith. I look forward to hearing the commission's response. The next one is, did the CPC even bother to discover the name of Terry Caver killed by Seattle police 3 months ago? Is the purpose of police accountability to have Seattle police murder people with the approval or silence of accountability partners? The next one, dear CPC, in the recent shootings of knife-wielding men in mental health distress, Terry Caver, ISPD, Aaron Olsbeck, Shoreline, we see repeated incapability of our PD to de-escalate, to engage creatively and non-lethally with community members in distress. How is CPC wielding its power to demand de-escalation from SPD? Heading into this autumn of budgetary engagement around police funding and the generative visions of community safety, will you please engage with the community by hosting an open public meeting, allowing comment and idea generation in person, and engaging with us? I believe those are the comments that I have.
Okay, all right, thank you, Prachi. Any response to, we have quite a few comments, public comments, any response to how to address those? Do we?
I think that we should come prepared next week to, since we're meeting weekly, to be able to respond to these comments and to see where what our work is, and where some of that we have not been out in the community for a while, and we were out there for the police guild contract and some other things. So so look at that and come back next week. Since we're meeting weekly, this is great. Because we can have a response and it won't take 2 weeks. Yeah. So it's about critique time, and so we'll. It is my suggestion is that we come back next week with the response for these, as many as we can, and things that's still under investigation. Under our preview, if it's under investigation, then we cannot have any comment on any case that the N is in OPA. Now we can have a comment on closed files. And audit that. That's what we can do. But we cannot speak on anything that's being investigated now. And then we can reiterate that. We can bring that up. We can show that where it's part of the statute and those kinds of things. So, and then we might want to just go through what the statute says for what we can and cannot do under the accountability system. And I think that might be really good to bring everybody up to speed on where our limitations are and what we can do and what we can do, and do that what we can do better as it relates to work in the accountability system. I think that would be really good for us to bring to answer these questions. So yes, thank you. Thank the public.
Thank you, Rep. Walden. Thank those for the public comments. Your comments are well taken, and we will get back with you with responses on next Wednesday.
Hi there, everyone. This is Esther. I'm wondering if we can actually see the public comments and how they're written so that we can fully understand the gist of it, and if there is a way that commissioners can contribute to the response.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Esther.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can make sure you see that. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I also think it's really important that we remind ourselves that we are a community police commission and our responsibility is to bring community voices forward. So I would really like to be thoughtful about these responses. So.
Thank you.
Also, yeah, that's a good idea. And also our mission is on the on the website too. Somebody sent it to me the other day, what our mission is as it relates to police accountability. community and also working with the police. So it's out there.
All right, any other questions or comments? Okay, well, let's move to our DOJ monitor. Anyone from DOJ here?
Hey everyone, this is Brittany Sereneo.
Hey, Brittany.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Christina's unavailable this morning, and there's no DOJ update this week.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Monitor Ron Ward, are you here? No? Anyone from the council? City Council? Mayor update? Anyone from the mayor's office?
Yeah, this is Austin with the mayor's office. No direct update. Did just want to make sure everyone saw on Friday of last week. It sent the press release to staff, but happy to share it in the comments as well. The mayor did veto the rebalanced budget proposal by council and had some concerns with the elimination of the navigation team, cuts to police salaries, and the reduction of the police force by 100 officers with no alternative plan. So just want to make sure everyone saw that. And if there are additional questions, happy to either answer them if I can now or take them back to staff and get them answered in a timely manner. So thank you.
Thanks, Austin. Go ahead.
Hey, Austin, Jesse here. I was just wondering if you have any information about what the initial thoughts on timelines for a search process for the chief of police search, if your office has anything there or if you're still working on it.
I think it's the plan was the beginning of next year, but let me double check on that. I feel like I heard that last week, but yeah, I'll confirm and get back to you.
Thank you.
Reverend Williams, can I ask a question?
Yes. Yes.
Austin, this is Alina Cynthia. I was curious if you could speak to at all what the mayor's concerns were about removing the NAV team, removing police officers from the NAV team.
So the gist of it was that with the elimination of the NAV team, including the outreach workers in the Human Services Department, there was no alternative plan to approach addressing hazardous encampments. So that's the information I have. I can dig a little bit deeper for you and see if there's any additional information, but that was the major concern, is just cutting the current approach with no alternative model.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more, Austin. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Alina. Any other questions? All right, well, that's move to CPC updates.
I'm sorry, Reverend Williams. I do have one question for Austin. This is Esther.
Go ahead, Esther.
Austin, I'm thinking about our defund committee work and wondering if the mayor's office has made any, taken any steps forward to actually create a forum where we can have that meaningful engagement. This is specifically related to the NAV team, and begin to deconstruct, housing insecurity, homelessness, and some of the ways that that folks exploit that through criminal activity, i.e. human trafficking, and also drug trafficking. And so to give a specific example, we learned from Councilmember Morales's office yesterday that the encampment that's right next to the Seattle Indian Health Board Leschi site, we've identified 18 individuals who qualify for lead services. That gives you some perspective on why it's so important to begin to deconstruct those challenges that we have. I'm very concerned that our folks experiencing homelessness are being exploited, and that the criminal activity is not being addressed. I do understand that that would be a point of consideration for the NAV team. So question again is, have we taken any steps forward to have that that very difficult conversation, but necessary conversation?
Yeah, no, thank you so much for raising that point again, and for raising it when we had the conversation with the defund work group. We are currently actively having conversations about what our kind of next steps for outreach for reimagining the police department will be, and that request is one of the things that we are looking to build out. So I don't have a full answer yet, but yes, that is it was something that we thought was a great idea, and I will work with our team to get you some more information about when that can take place. But yeah, that is on our to-do list as an outcome from the meeting with the defund work group.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments? All right. Next item is co-chair updates. Any other updates from co-chairs?
Reverend Williams, I can take the first item. That's helpful.
Okay.
So the first item, just going to want to open it up to the entire commission with respect to what kind of what kind of support everyone on the various subcommittees, or I'm sure that just in as you think about kind of the work that you all are doing as commissioners and in the community, it's possible that you've been like wondering about questions or answers to certain, potentially legal questions. And so just kind of wanted to, and this is particularly because we have, I think, a little bit more access to attorneys who are willing to work with the CPC on a pro bono basis. And so kind of wanted to open it up to the commission to the extent that you have any thoughts whatsoever about the kinds of legal support that you all could need, both within the various subcommittees and outside of the various subcommittees. So really just a brainstorm session, and I will plan on capturing kind of thoughts, ideas, kind of projects that anyone has been thinking about. And of course, if something occurs to anyone after this particular conversation, we can feel free to send those over to us as well.
All right. Any questions, comments? All right, thank you, Prachi. Governance committee?
Morning, thank you. The governance committee met on Friday. We are continuing our deep dive on the bylaws. We actually made a lot of progress on Friday. We did have to go back in light of some of the things that have been happening over the past couple of weeks to make sure that our bylaws are, covering all potential eventualities. And we're working very closely with the city attorney's office. We are actually now meeting weekly to get this done because we've been working on it for so long. And so we should have a draft of the bylaws in the coming weeks.
All right. Thank you, Aaron. Yeah, any questions, comments for Aaron?
Well, I just want to give Aaron some really acknowledgement and just keeping with this. It has been taking a long time because it's something to write bylaws for a quasi independent community commission with city employees, and so it's and have the independence that the legislation has given us. So it is a little bit different than any other commissions that the city has, except for ethics, and so it does take a little longer. And I'm really grateful that we're actually looking at this and working on it. And Aaron is doing a great job with that, with Teresa it started. It didn't just start. It's just that now we're picking up the greater pace on it. So I want to thank Aaron for that.
Thanks, Reverend Walden. Thank you, Aaron, for the work that you're doing with the governance committee and really giving structure and to what we're doing. So I really appreciate the due diligence that you're taking in making sure that we have structure. So thank you so much for that in the governance committee.
Happy to do it.
Any other comments? Okay, work group updates, demonstration management.
Good morning. This is Shailene. So demonstration management, as most people know, was included into and enfolded into the defund work group. So there won't be an update anymore after today moving forward that transition has happened. So we are all set there. I'll also give the brief update for police accountability and state legislative agenda. We are moving our meeting times to Friday. I think Wednesdays presented a challenge of back-to-back meetings. And so with respect to that, we're going to move it to Friday following the defund committee meeting. And also, thankfully, she's not here right now, so I can't thank her enough, but Colleen Echohart has graciously volunteered to be the commissioner lead. So as most of you probably already know, our two committees that remain, our defund and demonstration management collects into one. Our police accountability and our state legislative agenda is also one. Colleen will be leading our state legislative agenda. And Esther Lucera also graciously volunteered to champion our defund efforts. And you'll hear from her for that particular report out. So for state legislative agenda, we are moving time so we can have a more filled out attendance with everyone, just with scheduling. And in the moment, we are in the process with the ACLU and the Washington Coalition to join some of their working groups for state legislative agenda pieces, being around independent investigations, collective bargaining, I-940, and use of force. So as those working groups start to solidify and formalize their policies, we will be reaching out to them and having smaller meetings in order to see if our commissioners can go on board to those and have those touch points. But thus far, what the committee has discussed, our largest priority, probably moving forward, one of them is obviously going to be collective bargaining and looking at some of the language and how we could potentially speak to the reform language and any carve outs to those collective agreements. So we're still definitely not in our infancy. We have launched. We have a few things that are moving on the table that we are working towards. We have now Colleen at the helm, so we're really excited on what this will look like in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And so we'll have something bigger for that. Yes, I will. The meeting times, I'll have to look, but I'll send the meeting times out to the entire commission later today. I believe defund meets every single week from 11 to 12:30 on Fridays. And then I think we've scheduled, and I will double check and get back to everyone officially in writing so you all have it, that state legislative agenda, police accountability will meet every other Friday from 1 to 2. But I will send that out just so you have all that on your calendar. And again, we welcome anyone to join us. We have a commissioners already, but it's open to everyone. So welcome to have you. And that's it for state legislative agenda. Thank you, Reverend Williams.
Thank you, Shailene. Any other questions or comments for Shailene?
I just have a comment to Shailene. Welcome to Seattle. I hope that your drive and your move was pleasant. And I hope that I hope you like it here in the rainy season, although it might not be snow, but I hope you like it when it starts raining. It'll start soon.
Yeah, thank you, Reverend Walden. Yes, I did move here physically on Friday, everyone. So I am in the house. And you're right, I'm waiting for the rainy season, but looking around, I have no idea why people would ever leave this beautiful country aside. So I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Shailene. Defund and reinvest.
Yes. Hi, everybody. The first thing I want to do is just give a real shout out to Nick Jesse and Shailene. I think that it has been a real pleasure to work with staff on this. And so for me, that makes it really easy to prioritize this work and to step up to chair the committee. That said, I wanted to take a little deeper dive into our committee update and let folks know what we did. We actually met with SPD in the mayor's office, and the mayor's office presented the budget. Acting Chief Diaz was in attendance. Sunny Nian, Deputy Mayor Shafali, Austin was there, and Kara Main Hester, who holds kind of the details on the budgeting process. So they presented that there's a $150 million budget gap for 2021 compared to 2020. And they're planning to submit their budget proposal by September 29th. And what that means for us as a CPC is that we've got to get our recommendations in by that timeline. So that helps us kind of fuel our initiative and keep us moving forward. Just a note, and this is specifically for the public, 75% of SPD's budget is accounted for in personnel costs, so that's really important to know. There's 80% sworn officers and 20% civilian positions. I feel like as a CPC, one of the things that we can do is just share as much information so that when we think about our community and our community asks that we can help folks understand the landscape and we can help fuel the initiatives presented to us by community. And so that's what we're hoping to do. And for that reason, we're actually engaging in cross-analysis of the consent decree, the decriminalized platform, and also the council's recommendations. And now obviously we'll have to take a look at the mayor's position on the budgeting. And in that, we can just kind of present points of consideration, and hopefully from that, that landscape will be able to emerge some key recommendations. So I'm really looking forward to that type of work. It's where my heart is, and I want us to get to a place where we can really transform the system. Additionally, I would say that Chief Diaz is really looking at ways to reimagine community engagement, and I think that's important. It was interesting to have Nick in the room, and I've worked with Chief Diaz myself, and there's just such a difference in his level of connection to community. I don't want to speak for Nick, but I just know that it felt more comfortable in that way, right, to have meaningful conversations. So next steps would be, what I just shared is kind of discussing the current landscape, suggesting kind of points of consideration, and then obviously moving more towards a plan. That way we can do some of that work, the policy analysis, and then obviously bringing it to the broader commission for vote. So I think that Jesse is capable of sending, or Nick, I think, capable of sending the budget presentation to the whole commission. So just keep an eye for that in your email, and we will keep you posted.
Thank you, Esther.
Thank you, Esther. Yeah.
Any questions or comments for Esther?
I have a quick question. If there's
Go ahead.
a second. I was wondering, Esther, thank you so much for taking the lead on this work. That's really, really helpful. And I know that staff really also appreciate it. And I'm sure the entire commission does as well. I had a question about, some of the previous presentations that we've had from DCRIM and King County Equity Now have talked a lot about kind of engaging in the participatory budgeting process and how it is that the CPC envisions that. I'm wondering if there have been more conversations within the D Fund subcommittee about that. And then, of course, I know you had mentioned you'll bring it to the entire commission, but just wondering about whether there have been any additional conversations when it comes to that process and how the CPC can be helpful to community members there.
Right, I appreciate the question, Prachi, and this is interesting. We had a discussion with Nick about this, and quite frankly, we have a lot of work to do with community. You know, I mean, this is not about us presenting in a condescending fashion or with any sort of authority. Instead, I think that we have to create forums. I think through the help of Nick and her meaningful relationships with community to engage in that. It's something that we're absolutely committed to, right? That's our responsibility again to bring those voices forward. So that's where I really lean on our staff and their connections. And so I'm confident that we'll get to that place. And yeah, I mean, I think that what I heard from commissioners is that we support that community engagement and budgeting process. The question is how, right? And so that's the place that I feel like we live, is trying to help navigate the how. So
All right,
Thank you, Esther.
thank you. Any other comments? All right, thank you, Esther. Next thing is communications. Jesse?
Hey, Reverend Williams, this is Brandy real quick. I just wanted to say something kind of to set up the conversation for Jesse this morning.
Yes.
If everyone doesn't mind. One of the main things I kind of wanted to express was how we came about wanting to do this presentation. I really want commissioners, especially, for us all to be really mindful and transparent and consistent, most importantly, respectful of how and when we're sending messages to the public. So we were thinking, the best way to do that is to lean into what we can do and what processes are already in place. I want to just forewarn everyone, this is not an opportunity to point out or infer that anyone has done anything wrong. It's literally an opportunity to do better and be better about messaging and statements from the CPC. So Jesse is going to go over communications for us in a sense, or what is expected of us as commissioners, and just so we can all be on the same page accordingly, okay? So I will pass it to Jesse, but thank you all.
Thank you, Brandy.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Brandy. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let me make sure that this works. All right. Can everybody see the presentation?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So this is just to give as Brandy was saying, this is just to give a lay of the land of like how our communication approval processes work, and just give everybody some updates there. Let me go over here. As you could imagine, over the last few months, our media requests have gone way up. Our social media contacts and influence has gone up, and we've gotten a lot more direct contact. So this is a really good time, especially for like newer commissioners, to understand our process for how all of this works. Most of our communications, particularly with media and stuff, is dictated by the CPC bylaws. Article 9 about public statements says the CPC co-chairs shall act as the official spokespersons for the commission on commission positions to the media, mayor, city council, or other governmental entities, unless another spokesperson is chosen by the commission or the co-chairs. However, in all cases, such spokespersons shall represent the majority positions of the commission. When asked to represent commission actions or positions, commission staff shall notify co-chairs and may be delegated authority to do so by the co-chairs. So overall, how we put that into action is that anytime that we get a request from the media, we take it to the co-chairs, and the co-chairs can either choose to act on or to choose to speak on majority positions of the commission, or they can hand it off to staff or potentially another commissioner to talk to the media on behalf of a majority position of the commission. So let me see. I think there's comments. Cool. So the way that approvals work for this is that at the commission level, we're really looking for like stances. So any recommendations, reports, or overall commission positions will be decided at the commission level. And then after those positions are taken, what requires co-chair approval are press releases because of the bylaws, mentions of the media, interview requests, and other statements like that that are in support of those majority positions. And then on the executive director and staff level, that's where we handle blog posts, social media posts, and like giving public comment on commission positions, because those are all just kind of things that are upkeep with what we're already committed to doing. And feel free to stop if anyone has any questions. One restriction that has come up today a little bit that we keep in mind, particularly around police shootings or other types of misconduct like during the protest, is that Article 3 of the Memorandum of Understanding that helps set up the consent decree says the commission will not review or report on specific cases of alleged misconduct, review or comment on discipline, and will not seek to influence the course of or outcome of a specific complaint investigation or the discipline of specific police officers. The commission will not have access to any non-public information regarding an individual police officer or allegation of misconduct or disciplinary action. So the way that we put that into action is that we can talk about systemic issues when it comes to instances of police misconduct, but we can't talk about individual police misconduct in a way that could like influence OPA investigations. Any questions there? Perfect. So what do we do when we receive media requests? If the reporter, so as a committee, this is for like the commissioner level, if the reporter wants to enter an interview about if the reporter wants an interview about something related to the CPC, one of the best things that you can do and one of the best ways that I can help you out is to forward the request to me and we can talk about what it means. This is the time that I can help like form talking points, give you any background or anything. If you want to talk about a commission position, we do have to get that approved by the co-chair or by the commission as a whole. But if, on the other hand, if the reporter wants to talk to you in your individual capacity, you can definitely still talk to reporters. Nothing on the CPC prohibits you from doing that, as long as you make clear that you're not speaking on behalf of the entire commission. Any questions there?
Very good, Jesse.
Thank you.
Very good.
Hey, Jesse, this is Colleen, and I apologize. I'm like managing two different Zoom calls right at this moment. But I wonder, like, what is the procedure if a commissioner feels like the co-chairs have misrepresented the commission's views?
Mm-hmm.
What do we do then?
Yeah, I think that's definitely something to discuss. I don't think the current CPC bylaws really cover that. Any other thoughts or anything?
I just think historically that has happened in the past, and more personal viewpoints have been put out there, and I think it's really just, it's confusing. It's not. I don't think it's like a co-chair fault, or it's just a hard thing, and it gets muddy. But it also is troublesome too. So
yeah,
so it's just curious about how we go forward with that.
Totally get that.
Hey, Colleen, this is Brandy here, and I wanted to just chime in for a quick sec. I wanted to say to everybody, trying to be mindful of the fact that many of us wear so many different hats in the community, right? Like, I don't think there's one person here that's just a commissioner or a co-chair. And so when we're in the community and we're speaking from a media standpoint, we have to be really clear and distinct about what hat we're wearing. And sometimes even when we point that out, there are still some connections that are going to be made regardless to what we say. And so just to kind of be mindful, we have to continuously be mindful of that. And so I think something that we can talk about much deeper in strategy would be what's the best way to continue to follow this process and really utilize Jesse for, communication statements and, press releases and things of that nature. If we're following a communication strategy, we won't run into that problem if we're utilizing our communications advisor to the best of his ability. So I just wanted to put that out there. And then I think Jesse was trying to say something, and I apologize if I cut you off.
No, you're all good. That's perfect. And I don't know what the next bylaw. It's important just to note that this is all according to the current bylaws, and those bylaws could change. And that's a good segue to, I think Aaron has a comment.
That was exactly going to be my comment. Is this is something that we have discussed, in fact, in the last meeting at length, and it's something that we're working to address, because I do share your concerns, Colleen, and it came up in a really good conversation during the governance committee, and so we are working on that.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. Because I just want to say I appreciate that it's difficult. It's really hard, and I appreciate your comments too, Brandy. So it's just something we got to work through.
All right, Monisha. I think Monisha has a.
Yeah, and I just wanted to kind of support and add what Brandy was talking about. I wear many different hats as well, and I think that it's really important, particularly when talking to people in the public, that they know and are attributing the right hat to the comments that they're asking, because there may be other work where I am, I'm clearly speaking from an organizational perspective that's not the CPC and others. And so I think everything that we can do to, when we're talking to media, or if even we're talking to the public on a public forum or stage, to be clear the perspective we're sharing is really, really helpful and really important. And thank you, Jesse, for running through this.
Yes, and I think that this is just an opportunity to highlight the work of the governance committee, because I think it's important that we as CPC, I apologize for that dog. She's old and doesn't know how to stop barking. Anyway, we as CPC have a responsibility to be accountable, right? And that means within all of our spheres of influence. And so obviously the co-chairs hold a leadership role. And so I think that as we discuss the changes in the bylaws, what you will see, and I want community to see, is that there are new layers of accountability.
Thanks, Esther.
Perfect. Any more conversation or anything about this piece? Perfect. We'll move on. So here's the usual drafting process for things when it comes to, would they be like press releases or like any sort of communication like that. So usually I'll take a stab at doing the first draft, and then I'll get input from the team. So really, like if it's a super policy oriented one, I'd talk to policy. Usually send it to community engagement to get some of their feedback, and any of the other like subject matters that we have, whether it be like contract law or anything else like that. And we help, we build that out and make it as accurate and effective as possible. Then we forward that draft to the approving authority. So that's this one, whoever the approval authority is, we send that to them. And they make more edits and changes, and then we get that approved and we send it out. So that's how everything's working behind the scenes right now. This is just kind of like our best practices and not something that's super bylaw centric, but this is how we do it. Other examples of things that have worked well in the very recent past that aren't really that model are the CPC statement on weekend protests and implementation of the crowd control weapon ban. This came after Chief Best's batons and riot shields comment. The way this one came about was that the demonstration management work group had a conversation and flagged this as a need to kind of get out ahead of a weekend of protests. And we were able to work collaboratively as that group to really bring together a bunch of voices into a single statement. And I thought that that one turned out pretty well. And then another one that recently happened was the journalist subpoena letter. The way that we drafted that was I took a first stab at it, but really we came together in strategy and reviewed it collaboratively, which I think if you can get everyone in the same room and reviewing it at the same time and collaboratively editing it, that's when we kind of do our best work. It's hard to do a lot of the times, but these are a couple instances where we were able to do it. And then other examples include like this video communication that we put out about police use of ruses. Colleen actually flagged this one for us when after the police ruse case came out at the beginning of this year. She flagged the need for us to really explain to community thoroughly when Seattle police can lie to you, what's happening in this case, all of that other stuff. And this is another project that I thought turned out pretty well and was pretty effective for what we were trying to do. So those are all things. And I think this one in particular flags that like commissioners, if you guys have great ideas about like these communication things, you can always email me, call me, and we can work on them collaboratively. Some of the challenges that we've faced over the past 6 months to a year are staffing levels. Since we've had low staffing levels, I went from like helping out on a lot of policy projects to basically fully staffing our policy team for a bit. So communication, like those bigger projects haven't had a lot of time. Another challenge is that because we're talking on behalf of like a 21-person commission and we have approval processes that involve people who are volunteer commissioners, and because the news process moves so fast, the process can be a little slow for effectively answering media requests, though we've gotten a lot better about that over the last year or so. Also, like when things happen like Chief Best resign or Chief Best retires or any of those other big events, it's hard to respond to them timely when we're having weekly or bi-weekly commission meetings, which is just a challenge. And then kind of like what we're talking about here a little bit is that since we are a 21-person commission with a lot of differing views and philosophies and all of that kind of stuff, not everyone may feel represented by a particular communication. And then just the last one, commissioners are volunteers, and it's put in an extraordinary amount of work. That's not to diminish the work at all, because the work you guys do is extraordinary. But it's just, it can be difficult, like having full time and being able to respond quickly to things because you guys have day jobs for the most part. So those are some of the challenges. I think that we've created some processes to alleviate a lot of them, but I think that they'll just kind of remain there. Any questions about any of that? I think that that's my final slide.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Jesse. That's cool. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Jesse.
No problem. Here to answer any questions if anybody has any.
I just have a comment that sometimes the cycle does move quickly, and I, you know, just and how swift it is. I mean, it's a pertinent issue today, and by Friday it's not. And so sometimes it's hit and miss, you know, being able to get it out in a timely manner. But you do a good job in trying to get out the press releases, and I can say for the couple of years that you've been here is that, you know, you always do present talking points if necessary, or if you need more research, you always ask those questions and those kinds of things. And you've done a great job on that piece. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. So yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Usually talking points are great. We've had them more than once, and thank you for that. It's really, thank you.
Thank you, Reverend.
Echo what Reverend Walden said. Thank you, Jesse. You really added a lot of value to CPC and those talking points, and just thinking in details, and really being, you know, using your expertise to help us move forward. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Reverend Williams. And Douglas, did you have a question?
Definitely echo everything both the reverends shared. I mean, I think it sounds like what I'm hearing and what I would imagine is the needs of our communication operation have really increased over the past several months, and even, you know, year, and I think we've really, in large part due to your work, like risen to meet that challenge. And I think through the engagement we've seen on social media and how we're, kind of showing up in a timely manner in news stories, I think we're really meeting that increased need. I guess I'm just wondering, like, what, if anything, would be helpful from commissioners in terms of, making the workload more manageable, or kind of meeting some of those challenges that you laid out in your presentation. Like, is there anything in particular we could do, is one question. And then also a comment. I mean, I was thinking that it might be helpful, and this may not be necessary, but it might be helpful to kind of think about how we can better leverage our various commissioners who bring, different types of subject matter expertise to the table. When media requests come in, if there's like a media request that's like more gun violence focused, like, Brandy might have a good voice to speak to that. If there's, something that has to do kind of with the labor side and contract issues with SPOG, Suzette might be a great person to speak to that. So that's just kind of an idea that was floating around in my head. But I am wondering, what, if anything, we can do to help you meet some of those challenges you laid out.
Definitely. I think the most helpful thing, which I think you've helped with in particularly, is like just keeping in mind that like this is a resource for you all here. So Douglas has sent me like news articles on a number of occasions. As I mentioned in the presentation, Colleen had the idea for the video and stuff. Really am a resource here to help community engagement, policy, and all of you guys. Yeah, just remembering that I'm here. Also, I think Brandy's done a great job of like, as we onboard more policy people and our policy team grows, recentering our communication effort and making sure that I have the resources that I need. So really excited about that moving forward. But yeah, just my inbox is always open and happy to collaborate with all you on any projects.
I'm thinking about it from a retreat perspective and an improved skills perspective. It might be helpful to give co-chairs and others training on PR and kind of best practices related to media communications. Again, I like to be proactive about things. And so coupled with the strategy, keep points of interest, right? Because media will contact you about everything. With clear talking points so that we can all present in a joint fashion, and it really avoids kind of those rogue experiences. So Jesse, I'm grateful that you're here. And, Brandy, I'm also grateful for your interim leadership, really pushing us as a commission to leverage the skills of our staff, the CPC staff. So, and trust their expertise. And now we just have to stay in line. How about that?
Thanks, Esther. Any other comments?
Hi, Reverend Williams. It's Shailene. I have a comment. I have this is a perfect, Jesse led a perfect segue actually into something that I missed. Thank you, Jesse. And I will say, as a newer person, Jesse is the entire team has been completely invaluable, but I'm really grateful to Jesse as being that policy person and helping me to onboard. So I had to put that out there. He's fantastic. I couldn't say that anymore. So when I first started, I know in the beginning, I wanted to have individual one-on-one conversations with all of the commissioners. I have this, I will call it optimism. Hardcore optimism is my usual outlook on life. But with everyone's schedules and work moving quickly, that was unable to happen. So from starting next week, moving at least until the end of the year, and maybe a permanent change, I will be leaving my Thursday mornings from 9 to 11 open. And that is to allow commissioners the opportunity, if they still want to have a one-on-one conversation with me about policy. And some of these conversations might be higher level and might be best for Brandy. And I might include Brandy or send them, like, I want to talk to our executive director about that. However, policy heavy issues, or as our policy team builds out starting next week, I just want to leave the door open so people are able to have those one-on-one conversations or have a quick policy chat. And so I want to leave that time. I'll put it in the email that I'm going to send out today about our committee meetings and the budget proposal. I'll put it again there and my email. But just so moving forward, Thursdays in the mornings, if you'd like to schedule some time with me, I leave that open for all of you, and I'm happy to hold any conversation or space with commissioners. I just think we all need to have those open lines of communication, and I'll have most of my hands within those policy jars. So just know that I'm here for you and happy to have any conversation you'd like to have.
All right, thanks, Shailene. So we have an opportunity to have Thursdays with Shailene from 9 to 11.
Exact Thursdays with Shailene. That's what we're gonna call it.
That's great. Any other comments?
Wonderful. Awesome. Thank you.
All right. There are no other comments. Our next item is set agenda discussions and recommendations. Who's gonna? I was on vacation last week, so I need someone to kind of explain to me what that means.
Hi, Reverend Williams. This is Brandy. It was just an opportunity for us to see if there are specific action items or things that we need to discuss in the upcoming week, right? So it gives everyone an opportunity to be a part of setting the agenda.
That's great. That's great. So this is in reference to next week and setting the agenda. So your input is important. So as commissioners, you can lean into that at this moment.
I apologize for being late again today. Work has been conflicting with our Wednesday mornings. I wanted to ask if we know a timeline or a horizon when the SPOG contracts will be coming back up for discussion. I know that there is a process in beginning those talks, and I'm wondering if the process for beginning those talks have begun.
Thanks, Monisha. Can anyone speak to that?
Pasha might be able to speak to that. And if the mayor's representative, if Austin is from the mayor's office is still here, the mayor office could also speak to that.
Yeah, this is Austin. Thanks, Reverend Walden. I will do some more digging. I know that we have been having internal conversations as an office about our next steps, but I don't have a timeline off the top of my head, but I will certainly look into that and get back to everyone.
Thanks, Austin.
Yeah, and the last update that we got was that the negotiations aren't happening now. It's still kind of all the pre-stuff, if that helps.
All right, any other comments, any other questions? Any recommendations to be on the agenda for next week?
This is Douglas. It would be great to just have a discussion about where we are in the process of meeting with the city to discuss bringing the city back into the plan to bring the city back into compliance with the consent decree. Just like the SPOG negotiations, it just seems like that's a really critical piece of work. And it just, I just continue to not know what the plan is, what we're doing, like what the city's plan is to work with us. So it would be great to just discuss that, and imagine coming out of that, we might, have some sort of plan to like reach out to the city again or whatever that might look like. Although, you know, Austin, with you on the phone, I don't know if you have any updates on that piece either.
I do not, but again, happy to bring that back. And I will say that we do have our meetings with the mayor, the OPA, OIG, as well as the co-chairs. And so that might also be a good space for some of that discussion to kind of kick back up and then bring to the broader commission, but happy to pass that along as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Can we also just make sure that we recorded those questions from public comment to answer for the next meeting?
Thanks, Selena.
We have them, Elena. We have them, and they've been sent around to commissioners.
Thanks, Brandy.
Any other questions or comments? You know, this is, yeah, and you know, this is an opportunity for, you know, when the agenda is, when we put the agenda together, we have a strategy meeting where we go through what needs to be discussed and follow up on certain things and action items and therefore, and so forth. So if there's any other recommendations, if there's something in the agenda that we're missing, your eyes are very important and your voice is very important. So if there's something else that we need, questions that we need to ask of DOJ, questions that we need to ask of the monitor, some things that we may not be clear on and maybe foggy in our thinking. So if there's, you know, we just think across the board as far as our agenda is concerned, because we want to make sure we have some robust conversations and make the most of our hour and a half that we can. We just got a lot of public comments that we need to address, and that's a part of being held accountable as commissioners. So I really appreciate those public comments that we can follow up on. Any other recommendations that we need to add to our agenda?
So I know that I don't think that this is a next week agenda. I want to acknowledge that, you know, we've been sprinting for a while now, and that we need to look for our opportunities and our moments to rest our muscles and also to plan and organize so that we can not keep sprinting from fire to fire, but have some proactive, build that muscle for some proactive work to come, because then we can stop sprinting. To that end, I would like, not necessarily the next meeting, but whatever meeting we have coming forth, where it's appropriate to, as a collective, talk about our timeline for the work going forward and how we meet that without having to sprint as much. And I appreciate Jesse kind of acknowledging the volunteer nature of what we do as well, that it's a pretty heavy workload for when you add it up to the, you know, 20 other things that each of us are doing. I think I would make a recommendation that we take the week of Labor Day off. And I also, when we do the timeline, fill it with the buckets of the things that are most important first. So the thing for me that's most important, and I know I've talked about it just a few minutes ago, but really finding out what we need to do. There's always that complaint that comes up every year from law enforcement that they're working without a contract. And we know that the contract process takes a long time, and we don't want to be rushed, and we don't want to make mistakes. So whatever we can do to get that process started would be fantastic. The other piece of that is we have to have a real seat at the table during those discussions. If we are responsible to the public, and we are the voice of the public at the table around that, then there's a responsibility to us to make sure that we have a seat at the table. So that's really important. And this body will have a lot that they will probably want to weigh in on and influence with the upcoming legislative session that, yes, involves SPD, but and it involves SPD as a large body within Washington State, but we should figure out what we want our voice to be collectively around those conversations. I know the subgroup is having those conversations, but we need to, as a collective body of commissioners, figure out when and where we come out on those. So those are my overall suggestions for topics going forward, and also my interest in preserving ourselves for the fires that do emerge, and not pre-burning ourselves out before we get to those moments where we really have to be our strongest.
Thank you so much, Manisha. That was very well stated. And I just want to echo your the analogy that you use of sprinting, because we it seems like this whole year we've been in reactionary mode. And it's always been my question, how can we be more proactive, and how do we streamline our energy to the things that are most important? So I totally agree with you on your comments, and so I think it's very important that, because it seems like what has happened this year, and it seems like in past years too, is that we're always reacting to what's going on in society, as far as police reform is concerned. How do we be more proactive? How do we strategize in such a way where we are prepared, where we anticipate fires, and we are there before the fire gets there? Any comments?
I think that's a $64,000 question. I mean, $1 million question. That's the nature of our work, is that we got here because of a fire. John T. Williams and all the event. This is the 10th year anniversary. On the 30th, it would be the 10th year anniversary or commemoration of the great wood carver who was killed by the police in 2010. So the nature of the work is because of events. I mean, and I guess one of the things that we can talk about is how could we talk about events? And the one thing that we did pre-Ferguson, I mean, is that part of the CPC was ready. I mean, I ready for a rapid response for whatever the indictment was or non-indictment coming out of Ferguson. But when it's an event like Mr. Floyd, that catapults the whole nation and the world into a different type of event, then it's hard to plan for that. But for the non-indictment, we had a plan. I mean, we didn't know it was going to be whatever it was, but we had a plan that whatever it was, we'd have community centers open. People could go there. We had people ready to talk to people. We had a press conference. The previous mayor had talked about all the recommendations and that how Seattle was on the move. And so that was an event that we could plan for, coming from another city that Seattle already, and it went pretty peaceful that night, even though it was a non-indictment coming out of Ferguson. So a lot of the work that we're doing here now is on our plate because of national events. Not to say we didn't have events in Seattle, because we have our own Charlene Allows and all of those cases. So the nature of the work is around some kind of event that is happening. And so this is a good question. And I think that it's good to think about it. How could some of our work not always be related to public events that catapult us? Because that's how we got here. We got here because of 5 big public events in 2010 that got us here. So I don't know how we can, we could hope that going forward that we won't have so many events around policing and discharging of weapons and people being killed and stuff. And so, one of the things that we often say, if the policy is not updated, and if police officers are not trained to the policy, and even if it's just 50 officers, whatever, it'll be no discipline. And so we have that piece too. So I think for us, just how we can look at things and to see how we can be, like Ms. Harold just said, we can be prepared for some things, and knowing on other things we'll be caught up in the sprint, but have some other things in place. So like a rapid response that the community commission, the engagement team had set up around the Faradoga shooting, because I think Joseph is still on the line. Maybe he could speak to that, because we had that in place so that it wasn't in place, it was created. So when it was a shooting, it was a way to reach out to the family and stuff like that. And so those are some things that was in place because of an event. But all of our work is mainly because of events on some level or not. But I think this is really good having this dialogue. And I don't know if Joseph is still on the line, because he could speak to that. And I think Nick was involved with that too. I think she was here. She was here also, involved with that rapid response to the family.
Hey, Reverend. Thanks for forcing me to talk. But yeah, I mean, as we're having these conversations about the fire, and also taking a break, I'm reminded of our commitment to our healing and healing justice, right? And how does the CPC pause long enough for us to really have some time to look at the ways that trauma shows up in all of our work. I mean, we know that Seattle is the center of cancel culture, and we know that cancel culture often comes and disrupts and interrupts, and we come to these meetings and we still have to be in community with each other, right? And so I'm reminded about. So thank you, our commissioner, that brought up the need to pause. And I guess the thing that comes up for me is healing justice, and also the work that Roxana did with the CPC around centering trauma healing and stewardship. And so just another reminder for us to center that in all of the ways that we do this work within the institution, within our CBOs, within community, right? And so, yep, I'm here to support that work, moving forward, whatever iteration it is. But that's what comes up for me.
But you also was involved with the rapid response to the family that had never been done before. So I just wanted you to just talk a little bit about that for people who might not know about that.
Yeah, and I see that rapid response is really kind of wrapped up in the healing justice, right? And the ways that we navigate community, right? And the wisdom that is, indigenous wisdom in how we center healing and relationships, and also that we can't just access any community that we want to, right? Just because we attach community to CPC doesn't give us any right to do that. And so, yeah, if we're able to continue to build on policies that are centered on healing justice, I think is a really good route for us to continue to be on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you.
I think there's some things that have worked in the past that we, one of the challenges is that when commissioners serve their terms and they go off, we lose some of that expertise. But while we have you as commissioners, we really need your expertise. You know, there are ways that this commission can run better. We really want your input. If we can respond to the community in a more efficient way. We need many of you run your own organizations or over organizations, and there are things that you do very well. We need your input and expertise. Hopefully this commission will continue. The struggle will continue whether we're on this commission or not, but we want it to continue to be a viable force for the community and a voice for the community as it continues to move into the future. So whatever our role is right now, we want to be all there and put everything we can into this commission for the sake of the community. We don't want the commission, the CPC, to lose its vitality and its influence. And we want it to get better and better as we move forward. So with that being said, I just think it's important that each of you recognize the valuable role that you play in enhancing the Community Police Commission, Seattle Community Police Commission.
All right.
Any other comments? All right. Well, it is 10:27. Any other comments that need to be made?
Well, if we're just looking to fill out those last 3 minutes, two other things that are on my mind that are kind of piggybacking off Monisha's comment. I think in addition to, finding a moment to kind of rest or kind of keep our powder dry, for the inevitable continued, fights to come. I think something else that would be supportive is just thinking about like relationships and how we can build relationships between commissioners. I know folks have longstanding relationships who've been on the commission for many years. There's also, quite a few new commissioners. And so that's been something that's on my mind, is kind of thinking about how we can just kind of get to know the people we're working with a little bit better. And I think that would be supportive of, when we need to have tough conversations or discuss challenging topics, knowing the people who are in the room, knowing the people we're talking about, having that additional, level of trust would be really supportive of having those types of conversations. So whether that looks like some sort of social at some point, or, even if it's maybe via Zoom, whatever it would look like, that's been on my mind. And I've also been trying to get to know commissioners one-on-one just via Zoom myself. And then also just having like a strategic kind of plan or vision that we can go back to, which is obviously a much bigger work product. But if there's any way that we can work to kind of facilitate additional relationship building across commissioners, I think that would also be helpful. It's not necessarily something that needs to go on an agenda, but something that's on my mind.
Thanks, Douglas. That's very, very, very well stated. I think that's important. If the only time we meet is for a CPC meeting, then that doesn't do justice to our relational self in terms of how we relate to one another in these meetings, but also, how do we relate to one another beyond the meetings? So if you have some ideas, Douglas, just send them to Brandy or to the co-chairs, and we'll start from there.
Will do.
Thanks. All right. Well, that concludes our meeting today. And one thing that Monisha did say, we need to take the week of Labor Day off. So I'm sure that everybody is for that.
Yeah.
So we will take that up. All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. You have a good day.
Thank you.